morning, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my studio. I am back from my artist residency and I had the best time, but I'm very excited to be back and in this space, and I'm excited to begin creating here again. So today I'm going to be flipping through the pages of my nature journal. So these are the pages that I made while in residency. I think I have about 10 spreads, and some of them are unfinished. But overall, I'm really happy with the amount of artwork that I made while I was in residency. And even though I can't really compare it exactly to coming back to my day-to-day life and getting back into the routine, because I do have a job outside of my studio, but I made way more artwork than I typically do in the same time span. So 10 spreads for me is a lot. I normally make maybe one a week, and I made 10 in 3 weeks. So I'm excited to share with you, and we can talk a little bit about what I was thinking and what I was doing while we flip through the pages. So if you have been watching my videos, you may have seen a recent video where I discussed that I was unsure which nature journal I was going to use while I was at residency, and obviously I decided on this one. This is just a sketchbook, so it's not made for wet media, but I like to use wet media in it. So this is my title page: Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Artist in Residence, October 2025. And I'm also going to write in the dates here at the bottom that I was in residency. So this is the first page. This is a tulip poplar, and I have all of the common names and scientific names up in the corner, and then a little bit of information on where I found the specimen or what day it was, and maybe a little more information about what I was doing that day. So on this spread, maybe you notice something that is not typical to my art style. I have used some graphite. So I drew in a tulip poplar tree to complement the illustration, and I really like the way that it looks. And I used more graphite in the nature journal, and I think later on I will try to merge them more together. So maybe do painting on top of the graphite. And even though the dates on the spreads aren't in chronological order, always the paintings were in chronological order. So this was October 8th. I went on a hike with my volunteer supervisor. And this is the beautiful Chinkapin oak, one of my favorites. And this specimen just happened to be beginning to change into its autumn colors. And it was on the branch like this. It was just sitting on a stump, I believe. And I thought it would make a lovely illustration. And also, this is the piece that I worked on. Again, if you've seen any of my residency videos, I was invited to have a private tour of the specimens collection for the park with the specimens coordinator. So it was just me and her, and she took me into the specimens lab and pulled out some specimens for me to look at and let me draw and paint some of them. And this was the painting that I worked on while I was in the lab. I was there for about 7 hours, I think, a really long time. So this one is unfinished, but as I said, I have a couple of unfinished spreads, and I'm thinking that maybe I'll go in and fill in the empty space with some graphite drawings. So this one I found on the Noah Bud Ogle Nature Trail, and there's a lovely cabin there, and I was thinking it would be nice to have the cabin in the background as a complement to this beautiful mushroom. And as I've mentioned before, mushroom identification is something that I am still learning. I'm not great at it, but I wanted to paint a mushroom, so I did anyway, and I identified it to the best of my abilities, but also, I don't really think it matters that much. I'm not eating the mushroom, I'm not planning on consuming it, so it's not really all that imperative that I have a positive, correct identification. I did what I could, and I believe that I'm correct, but it's normal to make mistakes, and I will never know. But I am really happy with the way that this mushroom turned out. I particularly like the cap. I think I did a pretty good job. Another tree, this is the sassafras, and maybe you wouldn't have noticed if I didn't point it out, but most of my specimens and illustrations were of trees. It just so happened that that is what is readily available at this time of year. And as you all probably know, I love autumn, I love trees, and I love autumnal tree leaves. So it was pretty easy to find specimens to put in my journal. And of course, here I have another graphite tree drawing, this time of the sassafras, of course. Ooh, this is one of my favorite spreads. I love the way this spread looks. I love the composition. So I put a leaf on either side, a little graphite tree in the middle, and as you can see, this is the northern red oak. So this specimen I found actually not on a trail. I went to the historic Daisy Town, which it was in my first artist in residency vlog. So I found this on the little street there next to some steps that led up to a historic cabin. And I believe that's the only specimen that I have here that I didn't find on a trail or in the woods somewhere. And this one I found on the same day, but that was the day in that was the day I went with Ranger Meg to the Maina Avent cabin, and Maina Avent was an artist in the 1800s, I believe. Another unfinished spread, this one for good reason. I worked so long on this, and I think it looks alright. It's definitely not, you know, to the degree that I would like it to be, but my hand was hurting from drawing all of these tiny, tiny little lines on the fern leaves. The little lobes. They each have tiny, tiny little lines in them. So I worked forever on that, and I ended up having to stop because my hand was sore. These specimens I found on one of my favorite walks I did while in residency, and the trail didn't have a name, but there are several of these around the visitor center where I was staying, and it was just called a quiet walkway. And it was really beautiful. I loved that walk. I was alone on the trail. There was no other activity on it. So it was just me and a little creek and some mushrooms and some ferns, and it was really lovely. This is the bitternut hickory. I actually really loved the way that this one began, but as you can see, I kind of gave up about halfway through. I don't know. I guess I just got bored. I wanted to move on. So this one I found on a trail that leads to, again, a historic cabin. And on this walk, I passed a creek and I saw my first salamanders. So this was on October 21st. So I was there almost for the whole month. before I saw a salamander, but I was really happy to see them. I sat down to take a break by the creek because that trail was quite inclined. So I just sat on some rocks and I was sitting there for a while just watching the water before I realized that I was being watched by a salamander. This is the white oak. So again, I did the same composition that I did with the northern red oaks because I liked it so much. These illustrations, I can tell I was kind of just trying to get done. And I mean, also being the one who made the illustrations, I know that I was trying to get done because I wanted to complete as many spreads as possible while I was there. Um, so I feel like this one isn't quite up to the same amount of detail as the other ones, but I do really like it. And the colors of the white oak leaves were really beautiful. So hopefully that comes across a little bit in the illustration. Partridge berry. So this is a specimen that I always love to see. It's so cute. I don't actually know much about the partridge berry, so maybe I need to look into that. I don't really think that there's any aspect of this illustration that is complete, but I'm still happy with it. I'm happy with the way it looks, and it's done enough. And last but not least, we have the beautiful chestnut. So this one, as you can see, has a little bit more information on the page than the other ones. So I just wrote chestnut for the common name because it's not an American chestnut. It's actually a hybrid between the American chestnut and the Chinese chestnut. So it's 98% American chestnut, 2% Chinese chestnut. And this was the day that I went out with the research coordinator, research, with the research coordinator at the Appalachian Highlands Science Learning Center. So he's a scientist and he's very cool. And he discovered a new species of lichen and it is named after him. And if that is not a dream, I don't know what is. But I went on a walk with him and he told me about these beautiful trees along with other specimens that we found that day. And as I said, this is my last spread. And given the fact that I've said I've created more than I normally would in this time period, there is one species that I wanted to illustrate that I didn't get a chance to, and that is the red maple. But other than that, everything that I wanted to illustrate was in here. Of course, it would have been nice to have more mushrooms, more fungi, and I did see quite a few fungi, but again, I just didn't get around to illustrating them. And as I said, I might go back in and fill in the empty spaces with some graphite drawing, but I will definitely not be adding any painting into here. I think it's so beautiful. It's nice to have just, I was calling it a compendium, if that's how you say that word, a compendium of the species that I saw. Obviously, not all of them, but some of them, and the ones that I chose to paint. So that's the end of my nature journal. I hope you enjoyed seeing inside and hearing my thoughts from my artist residency in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I hope you enjoyed having a look inside. I had fun looking through them and remembering all of the fun things that I did. I'm really excited to get back into the swing of making videos. I'm feeling very inspired to continue on that path. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you also to my patrons. If you're unaware, I do have a Patreon where I share monthly newsletters, and I need to get October's out. I'm a little behind on that one. And I also share blog posts and behind the scenes information and also occasional exclusive videos. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you hopefully soon in my next video. Bye!